on to the hills to fill up the bounty hunters and other people trying to make a quick dollar for them and theirs. All of a sudden, we were hunted men. That was no way to live. I was a man of the law. I wasn't a man of fighting, so I decided to do the best thing I could and turn myself in and await trial here in Kentucky. Well, when the trial came around, Bad Frankie led more raids in West Virginia and captured 8 more Hatfields.
They hung me on that hill right over there.
We all started turning in evidence against each other to clear our names.
Too bad I broke
I
the
was
rope.
testified in my trial. I'd made everybody sign a pledge the morning those McCoys were killed. They wouldn't talk about the actions that took place that morning. And if they did, the penalty would be death by hanging. Said I carried it around in my back pocket for the longest time until I found out about the crime of aiding and abetting, then destroyed the document by fire. Sarah McCoy even testified I had told her that if she had a friend off McCoy or anybody tried to save her 3 kids, they'd be shot full of more holes in the sifter bottom. Now, of all the people that testified against me, Bad Frank and the county attorney, James Sowers, testified on my behalf. But it wasn't enough to convince a jury. They reached a verdict of guilty and I was sentenced to life in prison. 8 of the 9 Hatfields got sentenced to life in prison. Only Cotton-Top here wasn't so lucky. Sentenced to death by hanging in the streets of Hatfield for the murder of Alabama McCoy. But I'll let him tell you more about that later. Of the 8 of us that had to serve our life sentences, we were told we had to serve them out in Woodland. And I'm sad to say that 6 months after my sentence began, it was served in full. I died an old, lonely man behind prison bars. But I'm back here today. I'm glad to see you folks out to learn and hear a little bit about the feud. And I do believe my brother here has a few things he'd like to say.
I am Randall Jr. called Bud, son of Randall and Sarah McCoy, and I am 17 years old. I was sitting about the schoolhouse when I heard the shouts and shooting. I rushed to the election grounds to see what was happening. Famer was being arrested. Tobert said he walked to his side and surrendered. Then they grabbed me. I told them that I hadn't done anything. Bill said he had done the cutting, and Tobert said he had done also some cutting. They asked who had got Ellison off of Tobert. They said it was me. So I was arrested by the Pike County lawman, and we were under arrest and supposed to be taken to Pikeville. It was late that day, and everyone knew that it would be a hard time over the mountain terrain to Pikeville. So it was decided that we'd be kept overnight. Mom and Mary stayed close by, also brothers Jim, Floyd, and Sam. The next day, we started Pikeville. We hadn't been on the road an hour when Devil Lance and a gang of 40 Hatfieldmen rode up to us. Pike County lawman gave us to the Devil Lance gang. We were taken from West Virginia into Kentucky, from Kentucky into West Virginia. Mom and Mary was not allowed to come. We were tied, bound, and guarded by a very large group of men. Devil Lance was getting hourly reports on Ellison's condition. Mom pleaded for us to be released and taken back to Kentucky. Devil Lance made a promise to Mom and said, "We'll bring them back to Kentucky alive, no matter what happens. If he dies or if he gets well, I'll bring them back to Kentucky alive." They sang hymns to humiliate Mom. They sang, "Nearer, my God, to thee." They had got the news that Ellison had died. As they tied us to the pawpaw trees, I looked into the mountains that I loved so much. I said, "Why did Paul not come?" Then I was asked if I wanted my eyes covered. I said, "No, I will look into the face and the eye of the coward who shot me." As they started shooting, they shot my brother Tobert so many times that the ropes that even held him were cut. As the second round of wild shooting started, I fainted. When I came to, I was alone with the bullet-ridden bodies of my brothers. I was alone with Alex Messer. He was riding toward me. He fired one shot toward my head. It hit me.
Resilient.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is William Anderson Hatfield, but my friends call me Devil Lance, and I don't see any reason why you fine folk couldn't call me Devil Lance, too. Now, I was born in 1839 in Logan County, Virginia. Not long after that, though, it became mighty unsettling in that there neck of the woods. You see, the Civil War broke out, and there were these roving bands of Union men who would come into our communities and do whatever they pleased, and there was no law. We knew that if we were to do anything, we'd have to do it ourselves. But you see, my pa and me and 2 of my brothers, we had joined the Confederate Army. However, it did not take very long for me to realize that I was needed more back home than what I was by President Davis. So
So I did not hesitate to leave my post and return home to protect my kin, folks. When I got home, let me tell you, I had my own army waiting on us. An army of friends and family. And they were strong and they were fierce, and we put the fear of the devil himself into those filthy Union dogs. Yeah, we killed them boys. We done it. But what they will have you believe is that we killed them in cold blood. That is not the case. We learned early on in the war to take care of our own affairs. Those boys killed one of ours. They killed my brother, a good Confederate man, a faithful servant of the Lord. And the law was going to do nothing about it. What would you find folks have done if it had been your brother killed? No hope of retribution from the law. But we take care of our own. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, there was no way I was going to allow those boys to stand trial in Pikeville, Kentucky, the home of Yankee soldiers and their sons. But what my brother Wall here could not understand is that they also couldn't stand trial in Virginia. Why? What if old Preacher Ants went and pulled the same thing he did during the hog trial? Pulled himself some kind of jury of 6 Hatfields and 6 McCoys to decide the fate of my brother's killers. Now, yes, I know what y'all thinking. We did have some McCoys on our side, but there were far too many Union Hatfields who had served in the Union Army from Kentucky, many of whom were on the election grounds the day my brother Ellison was stabbed and shot. No, I did not know if we would get a fair trial at home, but what I did know is we had to get those McCoy boys out of Kentucky and fast. So I quickly gathered my loyal family and Confederate supporters, and we moved those boys into West Virginia. Just as I had learned to do early on in the war, I placed lookouts, real careful like all around. Knew I was safe in West Virginia. You see, if the West Virginia lawmen wanted to win their next set of elections, they's going to need the votes I carried around with me in my pockets. No one challenged us. They knew my reputation from the war. Only 2 McCoys came to beg for the lives of those boys. Tolbert's wife, Mary Butcher, and the boy's own mother, Sarah McCoy. Now, I must admit that this did surprise me. You see, it seemed that the McCoy men were too cowardly to come themselves, so they sent the women. But I promised those dear ladies that I would make sure that those boys made it back to the Kentucky side of the tug alive. And as I stand here today before you fine folks and the Lord himself, I'm proud to say that I kept my word to those women. Those boys did make it back into Kentucky alive. At least for a little while. Because you see, I had a tough decision to make. Those boys had murdered my brother, and he wasn't going to get justice in either Kentucky or Virginia. My loyal soldiers were looking to me for leadership, and I am a strong leader, and I can make the tough decisions. So I did what I knew needed to be done, what would have been done in the war. We executed those boys for the murder of my brother Ellison Hatfield. Now, I was not surprised when we were indicted in Kentucky for murder. Also wasn't afraid. Who was going to arrest us? Wasn't a man alive could get to me. After all this, things kind of settled down for a while. That is, till my son Johnsy went and married Nancy McCoy. Now, I knew this would be trouble because not only was she a McCoy, but she was from a strong Union family. And just as newlyweds are apt to do, they would lay in bed at night, talking. Johnsy was telling Nancy our moves. Pretty soon, the McCoys knew all of our plans. Well, this did not sit well with my son Cap, who was quick to anger. So he decided he was going to go pay Nancy a visit, rectify the situation. When he got there, he found her at home with Mrs. Daniels. And just as the good book says, spare the rod and spoil the child, he whipped those women. Just a little bit. Just to show him you can't go around carrying tales on another man's family. And you know, when he was done, I believe Nancy appreciated that valuable lesson. But as fate would have it, Jeff McCoy got himself in trouble in Kentucky, decided he was going to come stay with Nancy and Johnsy while the heat died down. When he got there and found Nancy in the state she was in, well, he became very upset. Said, I'm going to go get Cap. Snuck away by cover of night, got to Cap's house. My son was not home. However, his wife was. She was there alone. Sick. This did not, however, keep Jeff from shooting the house full of holes. When Cap got back, found out what had happened, well, he flew angry, went after Jeff. Let me tell you, when my son goes after someone, he gets them. More indictments from Kentucky. Yes, sir, those Kentucky dollars were really starting to add up on our heads. Detectives and bounty hunters were crossing the Tug River, trying to collect on us. I had to move us inland, build a fort, place guards day and night. We were forced to live like rats in a cage. No, I knew this had to end. I knew Randolph McCoy had to die. Decided that the best time to get to him would be at his New Year's Eve party. However, after making all the plans, I was laid up sick with the flu. But in my place, I sent my son Cap, Uncle Jim Vance, both capable leaders. Unfortunately, things went terribly wrong. The raid failed. Cap had to be protected. Johnsy was now in trouble. It was a terrible mess. And Lord, how it made headlines all across the country. Of course, those articles were slanted against us. Suddenly, everybody opposed the Hatfields. The governor of West Virginia, a close personal friend of mine, came to me and said, "Ans's troubles all got to die down." You see, he was afraid that Frank Phillips would keep crossing the Tug River trying to collect on us. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, I am a man who is afraid of nothing. But bad Frank Phillips, he ain't someone to trifle with. Besides, I was spending way too much money protecting us, defending those of us on trial. So I did the most rational thing I could. I let the feud die down, and I retired to Island Creek. Why, in 1911, I was even baptized. And I am proud to say that I did not lose one child to the feud. I was never arrested. Lived to be an old man surrounded by my loving family. You know how much they love me. Why, when I died in 1921 of pneumonia, they had a genuine Italian marble statue of my likeness erected at the family cemetery at Sarah Ann, West Virginia. And if you go there today, you can still see me standing there in all my magnificence, with my heart pointed towards the West Virginia that I love so dearly, and my back to Kentucky. Now I'd like to thank you kind folks for coming out today and learning about the feud. Have a nice day.
My name is Rosanna McCoy, and I first met John